I would like to share with you today an experiment in seeing, as in to see, to look, and see through seeing the source of all seeing. So look at your own body, look at the clothes you're wearing, look at your hands, and if you want, look at yourself in a mirror. And if you have double mirrors, look at your back in a mirror. Look at objects around you, and also look at objects on my screen. Look at the screen, look at me. And all this experience is happening simultaneously, okay? Including your thoughts about looking are happening simultaneously. So when you look at multiple objects, and objects are basically colors and shapes. That's how we define objects. The only difference between one object and another object is color, shape. So according to current science, the photons reaching your eyes carry information about their properties: color, shape, brightness. Then once again, according to science, modern science, current science, um, these uh, these properties, or like color, shape, brightness, let's say information, is coded in the electromagnetic waves, and the magnetic wave properties of light, such as wavelength, color, intensity, brightness, and spatial distribution, shape. Then each photon interacts with an object. So each photon interacts with an object or scatters, carrying modified information based on the object's surface, not what the object really is, just the surface. And according to the modern scientific explanation, your brain processes this visual data through neural mechanisms in the visual cortex, enabling simultaneous recognition of multiple objects, including the object that we call your body. And also, according to current science, attention and perceptual limits affect how many objects can be accurately tracked or processed as one. So everything I've said right now, which is current science, everything, all I've said right now, none of it explains the actual experience of seeing. The entire explanation I just gave you depends on modes of seeing itself. So the subjective consciousness, the subjective conscious act of perceiving, is far deeper and more mysterious than the physical explanation of photons and neural processing. While science can describe the mechanisms that enable vision, even the mechanisms and explanations exist in awareness, but that's to be elaborated. It suggests science struggles to explain the actual qualitative experience of seeing. As you know, this is referred to as the hard problem. So everything I've described doesn't explain what it feels like to see. For instance, how does the brain turn electrical signals into the vibrant experience of color? What makes shapes and spatial arrangements feel real when we perceive them? So the gap between these physical processes and subjective experiences is what both scientists and philosophers call the explanatory uh, gap. Why does red look red instead of just being a wavelength of photons hitting our retina? Why do we experience a sense of depth in space when photons hit our retina? So it seems there's no known code for how photons or neural signals translate into conscious perception. Of course, we know attention plays a role. When you might see many objects at once, your attention determines which ones you consciously focus on. Peripheral vision captures less detail than central vision. Okay, so can we explain this at all in terms of non-duality? Yes. In a non-dual framework, the act of seeing is not divided into physical mechanisms and subjective experience. Instead, it is understood as a seamless whole. Please pay attention. Photons, the retina, the neural processing, and the conscious perception are not separate entities, but expressions of a single unified reality. The photons carrying information about objects, wavelengths, intensity, spatial patterns are not external to your experience. They're already a part of your conscious field. Similarly, your brain's processing of visual data is not separate from your awareness. It is awareness manifesting as neural activity. In this view, there is no gap between the physical processes and the subjective experience because they're two sides of the same coin. Seeing is simply reality expressing itself in a particular form. When you look at several objects in a room simultaneously, the photons interacting with those objects are not carrying information to you as if you were a separate entity from them. Instead, they are part of the undivided process that includes you, the objects, and the act of seeing. Your experience of multiple shapes and colors arises as an integrated whole, not as an isolated piece of data assembled by your brain. The distinction between you, the observer, and the objects, the observed objects, or that which we call the observed, dissolves in one unified field. So there's no need to search for a code that translates photons or neural signals into conscious experience or conscious perception. The idea of a code assumes duality, that there is a physical process on one side and subjective experience on the other. Non-duality rejects this division. The physical properties of light, which is wavelength, are color in your experience. The spatial arrangement of objects is shape in your awareness. There is no translation or transformation, only direct manifestation. Seeing is not something happening to you, it is reality perceiving itself through you. While you may perceive multiple objects simultaneously, attention plays a role in shaping your experience. In non-duality, attention is not something separate from awareness. It is simply awareness focusing itself on a particular aspect of its own expression or multiple aspects of its own expression. Peripheral vision and central vision are not divided. They are gradients within one unified field. And this has implications. There's no separation between observer and observed. Seeing does not involve an independent self observing an external world. Instead, both are aspects of one indivisible reality, the self. And then another conclusion: experience is reality. The vividness of color, shape, and depth in your experience is not secondary to physical processes. It is reality manifesting itself directly. And the seeing is beyond mechanisms. Science describes mechanisms like photons and neural activity within this unified reality, but cannot step outside it to explain why or how consciousness arises, because consciousness is reality knowing itself. So, my friends, seeing multiple objects simultaneously in varied colors and shapes is not a fragmented process. It is a unified field act where reality reveals itself as diverse forms. There's no separation between physical light, subjective light. They're one seamless expression. And the mystery of seeing lies in recognizing that it cannot be reduced to mechanisms or codes. It is an irreducible whole. And all that I've explained, everything I've explained, is actually also in that same non-dual reality. The act of seeing is not divided, and its explanation is not divided. So, who or what is seeing? That which is seeing is seeing itself as the scenery and the seer. That which is seeing itself as the scenery and the seer, and you are that, Tattvamasi. That alone is. Aham Brahmasmi. I am the universe. I am that I am. So if you like this explanation, which is also part of the seeing, the explanation itself is a fluctuation in consciousness, as is seeing, then share it with others if you want to, and give me your feedback. This is actually the meaning of William Blake's poem. We are said to believe a lie when we see with and not through the eye. That was born in the night, to perish in the night, while the soul slept in beams of light. So when we see with the eye, it's through the conditioned mind of separation. When we see through the eye, then we see ourselves as the universe.